Hello, everyone. Today I'm chatting to another beautiful soul, Natalia Rose, and she wrote 8 books. She's from the United States, but living in Cape Town, South Africa, and she is a clinical nutritionist. Welcome, Natalia. Natalia, sorry.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. So
Yeah,
happy to be here with you.
of course. Like I've been really, really impressed, and I really enjoyed all your content over the past few months. And we actually connected over Facebook. We actually never met whilst we both are in Cape Town. And yeah, thank you for making this time available. I think it's very cool to start this conversation.
My
Um,
pleasure.
Yes. So, to dive a little bit deeper into things, what was your wake up call in terms of being able to see through the illusion and
Mm,
everything that's unfolding right now?
yeah. Well, I was lucky because it happened for me in layers. I've really been in in my awakening, intense awakening stages over the last 20 years. And my big wake up call came 21 years ago when I discovered that everything that we were told about food and the body was a lie. And so I thought to myself, well, if that's all a lie, well, what else is a lie? And that really began the whole journey. It was like, okay, well, then everything about the education system and the justice system and the financial system and, again, the health and healing and medical and every single thing was just riddled with error, erroneous lies, just to keep us trapped in, for some reason. For what reason? Well, in the sort of the medical and nutrition story, it was to keep us going to medicine, keep us basically um, funneling into the pharmaceutical system and being dependent and needing help that we would otherwise never need because our bodies function so perfectly. There's such incredible intel in the body, but it diverts that intel, it shuts it off, it occludes it, it prevents it from happening, from conducting and taking place and doing what it could be doing. So I realized there was an agenda there. There was a reason why, we were being sold all this packaged food and fast food and completely substances that were completely antithetical to the functioning of our bodies. And then the why became like, so what is the MO? What is the agenda behind it? What are they after? And it's not just, I mean, people often say you just look follow the bottom line, follow the trail to the money. It's not just money. It's bigger than money. Money is a part of it, sure, but it's power, it's control, it's the ability to siphon off human energy. And that's when when the penny drops and you realize that they're actually that the powers that be, I should say, the would-be powers that be, because they have no power of their own, and that's where the whole thing gets deep and gnarly. Um, they can't live without harvesting our energy, our power. They live off of it. So we're the ones with the power, and we're the ones with the numbers, 7 billion people, with all this incredible life force, driving it into their funnels so that they can exploit our incredible beingness for their nefarious, dark appetites. So that's sort of what it all comes down to. And you start putting that together, you realize that actually we really are living in a world, as Christ said, that is not battles against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, meaning good forces and demonic forces. And we have to get really comfortable using terms like demonic and evil, because if we don't, if we're scared to use these terms, we're going to fail to confront and have a very healthy, important confrontation with those forces. Those forces are actually incredibly weak and tenuous and easy to stare down and break down when we understand them, see them, and can identify them. But if we are too afraid of them and we want to avoid these things, then we will forever be giving our power over to them.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But like you just said 21 years ago that that was your like obviously it wasn't layers, but that also must be so frustrating to already being in this journey for such a long time. And I mean, only now we see things really unfolding, right? Especially
Yeah,
last
but
year.
yeah, and sorry, but there's more to it. So then I would say about maybe 15 years ago, I discovered David Icke.
Ah,
And when I started following David Icke, then I really entered, I mean, I was already pretty ridiculed and left on my own to research and deal with what I was discovering before that. Family and friends thought that my diet lifestyle, my colonics, my raw food, that this was strange enough, and that I was already like just too far gone. And it wasn't, I wasn't treated kindly in that respect either. I had to really stand my ground. It was a very lonely time. And it wasn't until, because in those early years, it wasn't popular yet. You know, there wasn't a juice bar in every corner, and people weren't fatting the whole raw food thing. And, you know, even veganism was kind of, you know, something that was sidelined. So it was lonely, but I got used to that. You just begin to stand in that and realize, you know, the alternative is no alternative, because the alternative for me was I was sick, miserable, and sad. And I would rather be alone and well and strong and happy than be, you know, be forced back into that matrix that was making me so miserable and I wanted to die. And that's what the matrix, it takes away your will to live. It basically, the bottom, the end of the road of the matrix is that feeling of loss of will to live. And you get it incrementally along the way, which is why people are always looking for an escape. So after studying David Icke for some time, you know, I pulled my head out of the rabbit hole, and I was like, whew, you know, I can't talk to anybody about this. And the thing is that I have a good mind. I know I'm a relatively intelligent person. I know that I'm not given easily to, I mean, we all have certain inclinations to, you know, be manipulated or coerced into thinking things. But, you know, I don't have any more of that than the normal person. You know, it's not like if there wasn't a very strong ring of truth in the things he was presenting, I wouldn't have hung out for more than 5 minutes. It was that there was so much, there's so many rings of truth, and there was such a resonance, strong resonance. And the thing is, when you, sorry, the wind is blowing the screen a little bit. When you are expunging all this waste from your body, you become incredibly clear. And I was doing it very consciously, so that every time I would do the deep cleansing work, I would remember that my system is now very open. What am I going to fill it with? It's like, you know, the vacuum has been created. Now what's gonna come into this being? Because I could suck anything back into this vacuum. I have to be very, very careful. So I consciously made sure that I was going to focus on just positive things, on things that would elevate my being and make me a force for good in the world. So I wasn't looking for trouble. I wasn't looking to like pull back curtains on very, very dark things. That's the last thing I wanted to do. But the thing is, when you're clear and when you're strong, you can look at things that are true and see them as true and not be afraid of them either. And I think, you know, this dark stuff is very, very dark, and it's horrific. But if you're coming to it from this framework of, I have this armor of goodness in me, not just on me, but in me, in every cell in my body, and I'm coming, I can look at anything, and that light is going to hold me. And I need to see it. If it's true, I need to see it, because if it's true that there's harm being done to innocence, then that's where we who become strong, we who are mature, we who can see, need to step in and defend that innocence and prevent it from continuing to happen. So in fact, that's what all the ancient traditions of initiation were for. They were to bring up these children around age 13 is the traditional age where children would be initiated in the Maori tradition, Aborigine tradition, African tribes, and South American tribes around that time. And it would be like a life or death struggle, because they were being initiated into being an adult warrior in the tribe. And what that meant was they had to know how to differentiate between that which was worth protecting and defending, and, you know, and that which needed to be defended and protected against. So that's a harrowing thing, but it means that you can identify what needs, you know what needs to be protected. The innocence needs to be protected above all. So that's when you are truly mature, where you can identify that which deserves protecting and then intervene to do the protecting. And that's, yeah, it's incredible. When you start to live a life that's based on that, every moment is a moment of meaning. You don't have to wonder, well, what should I be doing with my life, and why am I here on earth, and what are my talents? And people waste a lot of time on that. If they would just like do what they need to do, what's right in front of them, by having that mature action, as I just defined it. So in seeing these things, it started to you have to spend, unfortunately, quite a bit of time discerning and making sense of. But when then you start to understand how the financial system works, and that we're not actually considered free people. We're incorporated. Our names are incorporated on our birth certificates, and you understand that, like, that maritime law is actually what's being applied and ruling over us, rather than our free man law. I forget what the term for that is right now. But then you start to see how the game works, and how it is, how we are. There's a dollar sign on each one of us that we have, that we are basically traded on the stock exchange, that our lives have a monetary value. And so that's one part of how we're harvested. And then we're also, we need to have a fixed lifespan for us to be controllable, so that we go along the assembly line, and we do, we do our time in school in that little chair for 8 hours a day, or for however long it is, for the best first 16, 18 years of our lives. And then we believe that we need to buy into the higher education, so that we can, we can then have class systems that remain in place based on that, that we can shell out for more university education, so that we can go into debt further, so we can have things that we don't need, and buy food that makes us sick, and spend our time going, not with our families and our children, but in offices where the children are relegated to some other caregiver, and then we have the breakdown of the family. And then, I mean, the whole thing is just designed to break down our human essence. And then the more we see everyone else colluding in that, the more, we capitulate, because we don't want to, we're afraid of standing on our own, even if we feel that there's something more and that this shouldn't be happening the way it is. So it's just, and then I could go on and on and on. The archetypes, they're developed in that. Even people who think they're being rebellious, or they're being the hippie, it's all programs. The hippie program, the rebel program, the wild child program. It's no different to the program of the white collar worker, or the person who wants to ascend up the corporate ladder. Those are all programs. Everyone's just choosing their program, and they're sticking it in, and they're executing on it, and they're allowing themselves to become that. So mostly we're not even operating from our authentic truth. We're operating from this program that we've chosen. It's hardly a choice. We're given a choice of programs. We're not given a choice whether to be programmed or not to be programmed, and that's the problem. And so what I like to do is to help people realize that they can drop the programs, and they can find out who they truly are without the program.
Yes, and yeah, I strongly feel that we are all slaves of a system, and at the same time we allowed it to be, because like it's also a reflection, for me at least, from all the unhealed parts still within humanity, which is now like, yeah, that's now playing out, and we're actually resolving it. It's like we're clearing all these dense energies. So in terms of that, you're saying like you want to give people insights and help people to see through that you're doing that with your work, also with a healthy lifestyle, right? Because that's so important, your diet and the way you live and the way you approach things. Can you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's essential. Anybody who's listening to this and wants to exit the matrix has to exit the nutrition medical complex matrix aspect. It's all one. If you basically, what happens is we're carrying all this waste matter inside our bodies, all this programming that comes from the foods we've been consuming, the food, the drink, the pharmaceutical drugs, the recreational drugs, all these things that are acidic, they come in. Everything is intel. Just think about everything, whether it's the air you breathe, or the soil you walk on, or the lack of intel and the shoes that you wear that separates you from the soil you walk on, the substances you consume by mouth, by ears, by eyes, on every level, what you put on your skin, everything is a code. It's either giving you a false information, it's blocking information, or it's carrying information that is, let's say, that has life force intel in it, and then the quanta, the quantity, the concentration of life force can vary based on that. So you can have things coming into a huge quantity of life force and things with very little, but at least it's still positive in that its life force. And then likewise, you can have all, every level of what I would call anti-energetic substances that would go in and give you false coatings. So we need to get the false coatings out of the body. We need to do that by doing what I call deep tissue cleansing, which is what I've been practicing for the last 20 some odd years, where we basically put alkaline substances into the body, like green juices, raw green salads, etc., to awaken and collect the waste, make it, prepare it for exit. And then we do lots of colonics and enemas to release it. So the awaken release technique of deep tissue cleansing, it's not all that one consumes. It's just that there has to be enough of a component of that in order for this lifting up and out of the waste to leave the body, the prep, the teeing up to happen. So we need to remove that waste, which has already been placed inside our bodies over the last however many decades you've been alive. So that's a lot of waste when you think that only about 40 to 60% of what you consume that's not a high water content organic plant food leaves the body. That means that 40 to 60% of what you've been consuming is still there. It's a lot of matter. There's a lot of space in the body. Won't get into all that right now necessarily, but it's not something that is a problem just for heavy people, or very, very thin people have tons of waste saturation as well. It's about the fact that the waste, the matter that's not meant to be in the body goes in and does not come out entirely. So over time that accumulates, and that's why it permeates the entire organism. So don't bother, people shouldn't bother doing organ cleanses. Like, don't do a liver cleanse, just a gallbladder cleanse. Just do an organism cleanse. Awaken, release. The whole body needs to release. And that's going to happen when the bowel empties significantly, consistently over many, many, many opportunities. I'm talking about, more than people think. You don't have a weekend juice fast and have 2 colonics and think you're clean. You're clean. It's a good start. It's a very good start. It's an essential start, but you got to keep going. There's so much waste in the body. So that's like, it's like you're walking around carrying the matrix with you. And that's not going to help at all, because then you're going to be addicted to all the things. As long as these things are in our bloodstream, we're going to continue to be addicted to them. We need to get rid of the addictions. The addictions are coming from false appetites, from false coatings placed in us because they want us to be slaves. So an addiction is basically an enslavement. If you need that thing and you're going to go to any means necessary and compromise your own well-being to get that thing, you're a slave to it. And that's what people need to get their heads around. You don't want to be a slave to anything. I know it's hard. I'm the first one to admit it's hard. The only reason I'm here is because I've just fought through it, and I've dedicated my life to overcoming as many addictions and lower inclinations as possible. And I still struggle with some, but I'm in a place where I can get. I'm out of the matrix enough, and I'm in the network of God force, you might call it, the supreme network of life, enough that I'm on the right track, let's say. And that's why the awakening, it's not sudden. It happens in layers, and there's no end to it. And then we also have to appreciate the fact that, there's never an end point. We just keep on getting better and holding more of that light quotient, more of that God force. We increase it. It's not like, oh, we are there at some point. No, anyone who thinks they're there, they're still on the road. And then, so same with releasing the matrix in the body. But then, we have this, our being is this complex. It's mental, spiritual, emotional, physical, of course, sexual, all these aspects. So every single one of these layers holds the possibility for a strong matrix attachment. So sexuality is one of the biggest places that people get trapped in the matrix. It's completely erroneous the way humans engage sexually. It's so damaging. It's so dangerous. It's so dark, and it's a far cry from the way we should be engaging sexually. It is a very sacred energy, and the orgasm experience is the experience of feeling the God energy. And to go into that with anything other than pure love is basically witchcraft. And people also need to get their heads around that, because that's part of why they're bringing such negative forces into their lives every day. When you're in that moment with someone, you are creating, whether or not you're creating another human being, you're creating the next state of your life. So to have influences, pornographic influences, and all sorts of, let's say, objectification or exploitation of the body or of any of that has no place in human sexuality. It has a place in demonic sexuality, but not in human sexuality. So I recommend people take a period of conscious celibacy and think that through quite a bit before they decide to engage again, and realize that that which was put into us from the Disney movie days, like from the very beginning of anything that came into our awareness. It all happens subliminally. These programs are not obvious. They come into us subliminally. And from, I love Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton. He did this incredible study to prove that, or to show that in the ages from birth to age 7, we are basically in a delta/theta like state, which is a state where you're just totally programmable. So everything that we hear, everything we're exposed to around us is coming in as if it's truth. And so, it's no surprise that it's you basically, if you catch them, the Jesuit priest would say, if you give me a child with a 7 and I'll have them for life. Those first 7 years are they just become whatever you put into them. So think about what you were exposed to in those first 7 years, and now you understand, and why this perpetuation of basically sexual perversions seems to be a normal thing. Everything that's sold to us, it's like to be sexy. Well, why do I want to be sexy? Why? So I can be objectified and exploited, and so I can turn somebody on so that they're going to have some kind of attachment to me based on, the whole thing is so perverse, and yet it's seen as so common. Ooh, so sexy, so sexy. It's so wrong. Anyway, so and then they can go get me right onto the whole like swiping thing of online dating. It's like you're shopping, swipe right, swipe left. I don't even know which is which, but I know that's involved. It's like, okay, I like the color, but I don't know about the size. Are we buying jeans, or are we like, is this about love? So it all feeds in. So the clothes we wear, the foods we eat, the things we watch, all come back to this very primal and let's say sexual engagement. This thing that is so off track. So the financial system, the fashion, sexuality, education, legal system, like every aspect of our lives is inverted. Is take something that should be good. We should, like, justice is a very good thing. We need to have a system that ensures justice. This is the inversion of justice, what we have. Education, it's a wonderful thing. But what are we taught? Are we taught false history? Are we taught true history? Are we taught scientism? Are we taught science? Like, everything is inverted. It's once we understand that, we see how the matrix works, and we can have a one-up on them, on it, because we can't be that easily deceived.
Yes, I absolutely agree. But it also takes quite some strength, I feel, and inner power for people to do that dive deep and look themselves in the mirror. Like you did that, I did that, many people did that, but there's still so many people afraid of doing that. And it's because we went through that inner journey and really faced everything that came to the surface that made possible for us to see and to really feel and to see beyond. So in terms of your journey, your personal healing journey, would you like to share something about that?
Wow. Okay. Well, I'll say I've been through it all. I have been through like more than, I don't know. Look, let me say this. I think we've all been through a lot. I won't say more than anybody, more than people think. Let me put it that way, because I was determined to survive everything that I was put through, and survive it well, and stay intact. Intact is one of my favorite words, because we need to take care to keep ourselves intact. Because I don't know if this is getting too dark. Should I move this? I feel like I'm I don't know if it's, can you still see me? Okay, I realize the sun has moved, and I don't know if you're just getting this black image of you. Okay. Okay, so basically, at every major crossroads, I somehow, from a very early age, I was run over by a bus when I was 3.5 years old, and that nearly took me out. And then a year later, I went through terrible sexual abuse that, I think took, the rest of my life to heal. And then, family deaths in the family. My father died when I was 16. A lot of really tough things. But then I was kind of put into the world on my own without a real compass. And I think that's partially because I was raised in Los Angeles in the 70s and 80s, and it wasn't really I wouldn't say it's a time of values now, but it certainly wasn't a time of values then. And so I think I kind of went out into the world. I left home at 13 to go to boarding school, and then at 17 I went to university, to NYU, and I was always on my own. I was always sort of left on my own to kind of figure things out. And because I didn't have anyone really looking after me, um, I'm I felt like I was just kind of at the mercy of what was happening around me, and I was having to figure things out along the way. And I guess why I'm saying this is that um, it's like going into an ocean when waves are just crashing, crashing, crashing. No one's really taught you how to dip under the waves. So you're just taking it, you're taking it, and you don't want to, you don't want to be destroyed by it, but you have to keep going because you can't go back to shore and you can't seem to get past these waves. I think a lot of people probably have a similar experience in that. It's just like really, really hard because we don't have, by and large, some people are lucky enough to be raised in families that have really strong values and good balanced parents and these things. But, a lot of us don't have that. So, or didn't have that. So it's basically, I wanted so badly to not miss out on the goodness of life. So I wanted to I knew I had to rectify, how can I put this? There was the way I was living, I knew with these waves that kept hitting me, it was incongruent with the life. Really shouldn't operate that way. Even though everyone tells you that life is, it's a rocky road and it's a roller coaster and all that stuff, it doesn't have to be quite like that. When you discover the universal laws, which is what I finally came to over time, with cleansing the body, I started to understand how natural law worked. And that's a big conversation, but I did distill the key laws into a book that's on my website. It's free. It's called the Supreme Universal Natural Laws. But once you start to understand how those work, you can sync up with life a lot better. There's still a lot of cleanup work that has to be done. I mean, when you've lived several decades before you come to that understanding, you have to learn it. You have to learn to get to applying it. You've got to get into pace with it. It's not to say that everything's going to be smooth sailing. And in fact, what often happens is you realize that so much of what you sort of assigned to your life is not in alignment with those things. So you have to then release them. And doing that creates a lot of havoc in life. So it's not to say that things get easy, but it means that the things that you're struggling with have a better purpose, that will have a better outcome, will lead to a life that is more in harmony with the greater scheme of life. So that was really what I set my path onto. So it's been almost like a big cleanup job. The problem is we're put into a world that basically tells us to make a mess of our lives, like wreck our bodies, wreck our relationships, do what feels good, be chaotic, any kind of music, any kind of horror films or violence and vulgarity, like anything goes. What that does is it turns your life into absolute chaos. And it's kind of like if you took anyone who has really long hair. So you and I know this. If you basically like, when you wake up, or if you like, say you were just to your hair was going to chaos for days and days and days and days and days, you would have to take a lot of time to get those tangles out. Right. Same thing if you had some beautiful gold jewelry and it was tossed around, it got all gnarled up. You would have to sit with it, and you'd have to take a pin and you'd have to, work it out. And that's sort of what I've been doing for the last 20 years of my life. It's working out the gnarly knots that were caused by the first 25 years of my life. So it takes time, it takes dedication. And most people there's such an addiction to the chaos and the way they live, that they just keep going back to it because it's comfortable, because it's familiar, but it's killing them. They need to take the time to sit with that pin and that jewelry or that brush and work out the knots and do the work. And then things doesn't mean that you from that point you still have to take care of these things. You have to take care of those the golden threads, or you have to take care of your hair or whatever it is. But what you have at that point is the opportunity for what's called syntropy. Entropy is when things go from a state of order or chaos into lower states of order or greater chaos. And the opposite is, some people call it neg entropy. It's also a term for it. I prefer the term syntropy because neg is a neg. So syntropy is when we actually get to take something that's in a state of order and bring it to a higher state of order. So we can't get to our full human potential until we undo all these gnarly knots, until we do the cleanup job, which can take a really long time. But as long as you're on the right path, it's worth it. And your soul gets so happy when you're doing that which is required for that. That's when you start carrying more light, because whenever it's like this whole smiles and breathes and has space. And it's like, yes, yes, yes. So, and then which gives you more power to do the things that you know you need to do, even though it's hard.
Yes, yes. It's like you every single time it's a spiral, and every single time you dive a level deeper, and you're facing more and more and more. But it's also, for me at least, it's becoming easier, because at first it's so overwhelming and you really think you can't cope and you will never get at the end of the tunnel. But as more as you go through that process also of self-love and self-care, you learn that once you go through it, it's actually becoming so much better, and you carry less weight, exactly what you're saying, because you embody more light. And that's the release. That's for me, it was like for the first time breathing, like when I started to break through things, and for the first time really feeling. And that's gold. And yeah, and it's a beautiful journey, but like you said, it can be very challenging and very difficult at times as well. But I think it's the most beautiful gift one can give themselves, in a way. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is. And everyone around them, because you start to, get to show what our human life can be, especially
Yes.
if you have children or people who need that example.
Yes, yes. And it's beautiful that you are one of these examples. And also, thank you for sharing some of your journey. I think everyone who is brave enough to do the dive deep, for me, is already a warrior, because we need more of that in the world. We need more pure truth and more authenticity. Because, like you said, that's setting the example, and it's also inspiring other people to do the same. And we can only inspire others by showing them, in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I
yeah, we
like
need each
it.
other. We really need each other, and we really need to help each other.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then going back to what you currently do, like you offer beautiful programs also in terms of um, the nutrition and everything to help people in that. Yeah, you always use, and I really love that, detoxing from the matrix. I really like how you say that. So how do people benefit from that, and how does it work? What is that takeaway after a program with you?
Hmm. Well, I mean, it's the opportunity to learn how to become self-sufficient in it, because I like to teach people the things so that they can go on and implement them and have their own power to guide themselves. I I've never been interested in followers. I like to create people who will eventually have mastery over that. So I feel like I've succeeded when I'm not needed anymore, which is great. Great to be inspirational, but they have the tools and they can do it. Um, but essentially, once you remove the error, the erroneous codings, and the obstruction from the body, the conductivity is restored. It's if you take a young child, they're filled, especially if they were kept, they were their conception and their incubation and their birth was done in harmony. They come in with pure light, and it's just the error in the world that comes in and displaces that light with this nonsense. So if you can then get rid of that which has displaced your light, the light will return. It's that simple. So I guess what you would say is what I'm offering people is an opportunity to have their light restored. And light means intel, light means power, light means strength, light means grace, light means love. It's not, when people talk about light, it's really important to understand if we're talking about supreme light, the source creator, we're talking about a substance that has multiple qualities attributed to it. So if it's the true light, or you could say true strength is love, is light, is beauty, all the things. You could say true beauty is light, is strength, is love. It's one interchangeable prism of all of these qualities that come from the divine source, and that are that is us. That's how we are made in the image of this divine source, because it's just parlayed into human form. It's only the misguided choices that we make because we're programmed according to mother culture, which is if anyone's listening to study Daniel Quinn, will understand that it's not the good mother. Mother culture is it's the mother that we shouldn't have had. It's the mother that came in and basically took our birthright away. The distraction, the whore of Babylon, if you want to call it that. It's the false mother. I love in Peter Pan, when I think it's one of the Lost Boys says, like, "What's a mother?" And Wendy says, "A mother is the most wonderful thing in the world," and that's true, and that's absolutely true. But the true mother is the carrier of all those qualities. That is the consort of the divine masculine energy, and it's a they are one. They're united, and we carry those forces in us, and it's only because we were incubated, or we were put into this petri dish of a mother culture, which you can think about in terms of a yogurt culture if you want to think of it that way, or a vinegar culture. It's the same thing. Culture that inculcated us in it's basically a cult. Put us into a cult that has kept us from the understandings that would make us quite different on every level, in appearance, in thought, in creativity, and we can restore that to ourselves.
Yes, yes, yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I think it's so important for people to actually realize and know and truly feel how important the impact of food is, because it's so underestimated, and it's also something that obviously mainstream media and all these guys are not promoting right now, which they should, because we can make such a big difference by already eating healthy foods and getting out in the sun and all those things. So yeah, I think it's very necessary to get this message across to people how important it actually is. So thank you for that. And in that, I just have a personal question, because you're working a lot. Like, is your complete diet or your programs, are they complete raw vegan, or is it?
No. The important thing people need to understand is that it's the waste matter that's been put into the body, the substance that is now waste, the substances that went in that didn't leave, that's now standing in your body as waste, the erroneous substances that are giving you bad programs, they're giving your body bad information, and they're preventing the flow of your life force. That needs to leave. That is the result that we're looking for. We can create a dietetic, let's say, regimen that will enable that waste to leave, that is varied based on the person, lifestyle, taste preferences, all sorts of things. And I hate labels. Labels are just like, I'm personally not a vegan. I eat goat cheese. I know it's like one of those things that, I have a lot of compassion for the goats, and I think that I probably shouldn't. But in all honesty, I do. So I'm going to be forthright with that. I'm not technically a vegan. Vegans can't eat honey. I personally don't eat honey, but these are things that, like, do we want to put ourselves into boxes? And then you can be a vegan and you can be eating chocolate chip cookies all day. They might be vegan chocolate chip cookies. You can be eating bagels and vegan cream cheese and soy whatever burgers, and you can be really trapped in a matrix body. Veganism does not make you free of the matrix. Raw foodism doesn't make you free of the matrix. No, it's absolutely. The removal of the waste you've accumulated, and what you wind up finding is that high water content raw plant food or cooked plant food. You can cook your plant food. It's fine. It's it's a lower vibration, but that's okay, because we're putting high vibration food in. It's like putting high vibration octane into. I mean, I'm not a car person, but like into a old pickup truck. It's not going to mean anything to that old pickup truck. Slowly we have to basically get the waste out, and that's the whole purpose of the dietetics. It's to awaken the waste so they can be removed. If you're doing the dietetics and you're not removing the waste, you're not doing it. If you're trying to remove waste but you're not getting it awakened, you're not going to remove very much waste. So it's about the waste leaving. And if one takes away nothing more than that from this conversation, it's the most important thing, because once that waste leaves, you know what happens? The intel is restored to the body, and everything I've just spoken about becomes just like accessible, because you just know it. We all will have access to the same information once we get the erroneous codings and the obstruction out of the body. It's that easy. It's that true, because truth is pervasive. It's absolute. And it's kind of like, well, when you release a trapped animal, that trapped animal is now free, and it's going to start behaving, well, it's going to go through some trauma release and stuff, but eventually, if given the right conditions, at least over generations, because we're also talking about multiple generations here, we might not fix everything in ourselves in this generation, but we could also expand our lifespan hugely and have more time to do the healing that we would otherwise only be able to do over multiple generations, but then we couldn't control the conditions for those generations to ensure that they would actually get there. But we can control our lifespan and our time and our consciousness and what we decide to do in our minds and bodies. I feel like I've healed multiple generations for myself in this lifetime. I feel like the first 10 years of my cleansing journey were cleaning up the first 25 years of my life, detoxing that. Mm-hmm. And I believe that the second decade that I'm now going to my third decade of this is all lineage, cleaning up all the lineage, all the waste accumulation, the DNA damage, the erroneous codings from the past. And then you really start getting somewhere.
Yes. Beautiful. Also, I think once you, like you said, once you clean your body and start to releasing all these toxic energies and everything that actually is not serving us, your body also starts to crave more healthy foods and higher frequency foods and fruits and veggies instead of fast food and everything that's out there. It's me, it's going very aligned in that process of the journey of remembering. You just feel these changes and it's easier to adjust because it's becoming the norm. It's normal then.
Yeah, the second the waste starts to leave, the addiction is in the waste. So when the waste leaves, the addiction, it starts to shift and be reduced hugely.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and isn't like for me, and I would love to hear from you what your take on it is, like with addictions, also food-wise, or even like drinking or like any addiction really. It's often also because we're suppressing the feelings that we don't want to feel. So then we grab a glass of wine, or we fall back and go to the gym like, yeah, too much or whatever. Everything that's too much is basically suppressing something in our body that we actually need to deal with and need to face.
Yeah. Well, if something takes us out of balance, then we have to go to extremes to fix it. So then we wind up, so if we're in balance, say, and then we do things like we take in a lot of acidic food or drink or recreational or pharmaceutical drugs or whatever, and then we have all these symptoms. And then we need to rectify these symptoms, whether the symptoms are inflammation, which is a core symptom anyway. But like from that, we have headaches and weight gain and organ dysfunction and all this stuff. Then we think we need to go to the extreme to fix them. And maybe that extreme for some people is taking more medications or exercising, as you say, excessively. When I do my physical training, I like to focus on the concept of training. I never exercise. Exercising is silly. Exercise is something that people do who think they want to burn calories. You train a skill. So I train my martial arts. I train my strength. I don't exercise. And so so when you get out of the headspace of, I'm going to be, I'm going to throw caution to the wind. I'm going to have whatever I want. I'm going to have that popcorn. I'm going to have that bucket of ice cream or whatever it is. Well, then you're going to be in the same mindset. We're going to be swinging the other way to fix it. And both of these is error, is way out of balance, as opposed to, okay, what does life require of me? Life wants my soul to grow, and it wants my intel to expand, and that's syntropy, that's neg entropy. So I want to be able to be at a baseline intactness, so I can grow that intactness, I can grow that power, I can grow that soul force. Otherwise, all most people are doing is just depleting their soul force, depleting their power, swinging back and forth, being so silly with their precious selves.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, nice. That's beautiful. Before we round off, like what would you like to share with the people that are watching this, like to do specifically in the upcoming weeks yet to come, because we are in a very challenging time and a lot of people are feeling very confused, a lot of people feeling fearful, a lot of people, they don't know what they feel, and a lot of people don't know what is hitting them when things start to unfold. What would you like to share with them? What would be your advice to stay at least grounded and keep it close to your heart?
Well, I think the most functional thing one can do is differentiate between the matrix and the network of life, and recognize that the matrix is always going to be throwing chaos and confusion into the mix, because that's how they keep people weak. So see how the matrix operates. Start to pay attention to how the artificial operates. It's designed to make you weak. It's designed to keep you in fear, chaos, and confusion. So when those things come up, you can identify them as being matrix energies designed to harness and harvest your energy. By contrast, we have the original network of life, the indwelling spirit, that beautiful, interconnected, think of it as a giant instrument. The instrument that every string you pluck sounds like a beautiful harp. Ding, 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 ding. That's life. That's the sound of conducting life happening. You want to be in that. You want to be in that so firmly. You can imagine it like, if you're a child and you're safe in your home and stuff is going on in the streets and it's dark and scary and it's maybe Halloween night, if something crazy is going on. In your home is sanctity and sacredness, and that's where you need to be. And you need to lock the door, and you need to not go out while that's happening, meaning that you don't go out of that consciousness. You don't allow that to come into your home. The door is locked. They can knock, but they can't come in. And you have your parents and people in your home. You've got martial arts experts. You've got all these in your home to protect you. And that's your conscious will. That's the thoughts that you allow in your mind. That's the people you hang out with. We be very careful who we engage with and what kinds of things we let into our world. This is the time for that. This is the time for self-protection and for building strong relationships with people who have the same understanding as you, so you can support each other. But you stay in the network of life, you shut and lock the door, and you let that which is going to go on Halloween night, the equivalent of, let's just say, the world gone mad. You can just let it happen, and you stay where you need to be. You stay safe. I stay safe. That term actually drives me crazy because it's all about that. What I'm saying? You actually truly, that's a false stay safe where they're like, oh, stay safe. You'll really, truly, the sacredness of your being needs to be protected. Don't let them have it. Don't let that wild Halloween night outside your door have your precious energy. You take care of it. And while you're behind those doors and while you're behind those locked doors, and this time needs to be taken away from, and specifically with boundaries up against the world, you need to be strengthening yourself. You need to be overcoming your addictions. You need to be doing physical training. You need to be understanding the choices that you're making and what goes into your being. It's intimate space. And do you want to put things with erroneous codes into your sacred space? And really question everything so that you can use this time in a very productive way, because the energies are so powerful right now that we can be skyrocketing and transforming. Don't be afraid of the transformation. Don't hold on to the old. Don't have the sandbags on your hot air balloon so you can't actually use it. This is the time to drop the sandbags, and we need to get out of Oz.
Yes.
Where we're supposed to be going. All right, it's time, and we can all do it together. And we have these threads, these chords, this instrument that we're in together. It wants us there. The music is more beautiful when we're in it. It's not like it does better without us. It wants us there. It makes the orchestra play that much more exquisitely. So the more we can be true to it and love it and experience it, the better our life experience will be, and the better this whole, whatever this is, this mystery of life is, the more of an opportunity it has to express itself. And that means its soul is happy. The collective and the individual soul just starts resounding with that kind of satisfaction and expansion.
Yes, that's beautiful advice, and absolutely it resonates. I think closing the door and staying within that consciousness that you're in, that's so important right now. So yeah, absolutely. Natalia, where
Stay
can
home. Stay home. Stay home.
yeah, oh, yeah. Yes. Um, where can we find you? Your websites, your socials. Where can people find more information about you if they want to look you up?
Okay. It's Instagram, Natalia Rose Institute, and detoxtheworld.com. NataliaRose.com is also, there's two sites up there, but they're more or less the same. NataliaRose.com, and on Facebook as Natalia Rose, And yeah, pretty much that's it.
Cool. I will add all these links with this video, so then people can also find you online. It was really lovely chatting to you, and thank you for your time. I hope that people have some good new insights why it's so important to really detox from the matrix and what it can bring you yeah, in the journey, in the healing journey and in the journey of remembering. So thank you.
Nishanthi, thank you so much. I love being a part of this, and I really appreciate your interest. And yeah, thank you, and thank you to everyone listening for being willing to receive such, let's say rather an unusual perspective on things. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks.